Guys, and I've got another installment of a tips video for getting perfect stencil transfer tips. So this time we're gonna fix everything with glitter, right? If it looks like stick glitter on it and it's great, right? Let's just get started here. I'm gonna paint on some paper and gonna show you guys some typical kind of mistakes that end up happening. So first of all, I have to actually mess this up on purpose here. So hold on. Let me get way too much paint on my sponge. Okay. So let's say we're going to do the classic. We're going to go in and we want to make some stars, right? So you're going to go in there and you're going to, oh man, I just know right away this ain't going to be good because I can see little bubbles on top of my plastic. So I didn't bother going and doing a test area, and I can't stop. I keep doing this even though I know it's not going to turn out, and it's like I'm prolonging my inevitable death knowing it's going to be blurry. You know that feeling? So let's see. How's it look? How many times have you had that feeling? And you did it on a kid's face. And you're just like, what am I going to do? Well, here's something you can do. Right? You can just blur it out like you meant to do it. Okay? And then you can go on the back side of your stencil, because on the back side of your stencil, the paint's gone through, right? Even if you laid it back down, there's going to be little transfer marks. So you're going to either use the back side of your sponge here that has no paint on it and kind of wipe it off a little. There's a lot of paint on this top side because it takes longer to dry on the plastic. So use that back side of your sponge and wipe off all the excess wet paint off there. And then this sponge probably still has way too much paint on it, so get rid of it. Maybe not so dramatically at a party, but start over again, right? So get a perfect load and just go in with a different color. So go in there with something darker. What's darker than white? Everything. Okay, so just pick a different color and then go in and put it on top of your stars, right? Oh, look, now it turned out. So what you can do too, this is pretty dramatic what I did here with this blob it out with the white and then just go on with others with a different color. So a really super easy fix would be to extend that white blob into something like you meant to do it. So you could go in there and just put some dots coming off of it, or you could put white stars coming off of it. So your paint area is bigger now, right? So does that make sense? So it's just a different design that you're ending up doing, right? It's not what you thought you were going to do, but it's going to be even better. You could do maybe squares, because that's this really square shape that I had blocked out there, So don't worry so much about it. And, go in there and just, let's see, paint a little emoji on top of that area. So now it's your main focal point area. It's a big wallpapery background area that you're going to go in with, and that's where you're going to put your main artwork. So, right? Where's the face? Oh no. Right? Now this looks like a cool graffiti mashup of action happening, right? Okay, so that's one way of kind of dealing with it. So another way of dealing with it, let's see. So I've gone in and maybe it's too wet again. And I go in with my stars and I go in to put my stars on and I'm like, oh, I think it might be too wet. I don't even want to check yet. So you don't want to even check yet? Have some, oops, that's behind my head. Have some glitter around, okay? And go for a color of glitter that's maybe a little bit darker than what your paint color is. And you can take your sponge and dip it right into your glitter. And because it's still going to be wet, you can tap it on here And the glitter is going to stick to just where the shape is. The glitter is not going to go underneath where the wet paint is. The glitter will stick to just the shape, so that now you can have glittery stars and it'll look extra good. So these stars actually turned out really well. So let me actually try and mess it up. Sometimes when I purposely try and mess stuff up, it doesn't actually happen because I'm so used to doing everything so perfectly all the time. So lame. Okay. Let's see. Is this way too wet? Looks pretty wet. This looks really wet. Okay, so this is a better sample. Okay. So these stars should get messed up. So I'm like, ooh, okay. Grab my glitter, put it on. It still turned out pretty good. Me. Anyways, if it mashes out, put glitter on it, it'll look really good. Let me try it again. I'll try it again for you guys. Isn't this funny that it's not messing up for me? Let's see. No. Perfect again. How come I can't seem to mess it up? They're like, just go overboard, Leia. Let's see. I seem to be able to mess it up with the white. Here, I'll get it really wet. There. Oh, this one's for sure a nasty. Okay, I did it. It's really nasty. I know that this is going to be a blurred out mess. So now it should work. I'm going to grab, so I did white stars. I'm going to grab pink glitter because I just got this pink open and put that on there. So at least it looks better, right? At least you got star shapes on there. So it's just a way of doing damage control. It looks better than when it was just like some nasty blobby. I mean, those are still a pass. But see there? At least you can get away with it. Another thing you can do for damage control is you can take an outline and throw in a couple out. Usually stars are the thing that people mess up the most, and I think it's because it's got the really pointy, tiny edges, so it's hard to get into these little teeny tiny points, you know? And you're having to really shove the smudge around, so it's easy to be overloaded on it. But you can go in and just do some damage control by accentuating the points. So just go in there and kind of build those little points back up. And you only have to pick a couple of stars to do it on, and do it when you're like leave it till the end when you're outlining the rest of your stuff, you know, when you're outlining your little character or you're outlining some of your little whatever, you're just pick some stuff to outline so that you have an excuse to go in there and fix your stars. So even if you're just outlining the stars and you're leaving some of these areas that are still blobby, but you're outlining your star, at least you're adding definition to everything, and then you'll get a better looking star. So does that make sense? I hope that's helpful. But the glitter really helps kind of cover any mistakes. One of my favorite things to do though is if I end up really making a mess out of my stars. How come I can't mess them up today for you? It's so bad. Give me some more water. Maybe if I just spray water on my sponge, just make my sponge really wet. Yeah, okay. So, like, I'd still give those a pass. Like, I'd still be like, whatever, that's not bad. It's pretty good. I still think that if it's really bad like this, you can use the back side of your sponge and just blur it out and go over it again with a darker color, you know. It just looks like shooting stars and call them shooting stars. Do you know what I mean? The most important thing if you mess up your stencil transfers is to just keep moving, you know, like really just keep moving. You pick a couple to accentuate out of there. And those aren't even perfect outlines. They're just little like V corners that I'm throwing in there to, and it's not even every part of the star. It's just a couple little spots here and there. You see that? So just the different little things you can do. Lines like this. So if you overshoot your stencil, so say you're trying to get this and you go like that because you're not paying attention, and then you pick up one of these lines, you can just go in and extend that line and make it part of the pattern going whatever other way and not worry about it. I so rarely worry about that kind of stuff. If I do those kind of line, make mistakes with the lines like that, I'll just literally go in and put more stencil on top of it and just keep moving. It's totally not the biggest deal in the world. Nobody's really judging you that much on it. The most important thing always is to make sure that your sponge isn't too wet. And if it's too wet and you mess it up the first time, just like totally toss the sponge and start with a new one, because or you're like knock the paint off. But just from my experience of teaching so many classes and telling people to knock the paint off their sponge, and they just don't tend to like actually really knock the paint off their sponge. It tends to like linger around and have loads of paint still in the sponge. I don't know what it is, so just start over. Another thing too is, I don't, how many people have like, oh, I forgot to wash my sponges last night. So they wash their sponges right before the gig and they stick them in a bag and show up to their gig and their sponges are still damp. So like, that's okay if you're going to go on there and start painting like this with the sponge. But if you've got a damp sponge from washing them and you've just like squeeze dried them, or even if you've like rolled them up in a paper towel all tight, they're not quite totally dry really, and there's more water in there than you'd think. And so even for me, when I'm like running low on time or I forgot to wash my sponges and I got to do something, it's dangerous to go in there and start stenciling with one of those freshly washed sponges that are super damp, because there's way more water in there than you think. It's really hard to control, like to know, you know, how, and the water's like all the way in the sponge. It's not just on that super thin first layer of the sponge, like it's soaked. So it picks up a lot more paint than you realize, and it's way harder to use to get good stencil transfers. So that's my advice there on that. So hopefully this was some good tips. But dipping your sponge in some glitter and glittering up your shapes works really well to cover them up. And then just blur it out with your sponge. If it's really nasty and I'm not really able to save them, you know, by, what's on that side? There's nothing there. Nothing there to see. Yeah, if it gets pretty nasty or gnarly, you know, that you can't save it. That's pretty good. I would leave that. I don't think it's perfect, but it's pretty good. Try and get it really bad here. So there's, again, like if there's a couple that just run into each other like that, like who cares, right? You've still got enough of them that look good. And I think that's like, maybe it's like a trick that I do that I don't even think about, is I'll purposely have like heavier areas and lighter areas, because I don't know, it looks more graffiti style, it just looks more artsy to me. Yeah, I guess I just don't worry about it being like so perfect everywhere. So you can see where I've got lighter amount of paint, there's way bigger lines between the little shapes than where I've had more paint. It blends in together. But that looks kind of cool to me, don't you think? Like it looks more realistic, like what honeycomb would actually look like. There's no way that's too much paint. That's just the perfect amount of paint. What a video, right? Trying to mess up stencils just for you guys, and I'm unable to do it. Okay, try again. Maybe the stars again. Okay, this is gonna be, yeah, like that. Not so great. Couple of them, like these couple over here are okay. Up here, they're not so great. Go like this. Make them shooting stars. Go over them again with a darker color. Where's my sponge at? Wipe off all of this excess so it doesn't mess up your transfer when you try and do it again, right? I don't remember how I laid this down. That looks like the zone. So they're shooting stars now. Yep, they're shooting stars now. And then you can go in there and put in a couple little joints. Right. Anyways, I think that's a decent tip to fix your stencil transfers when they get all whack on you. Right? That's a pass. I would give that a pass and say shooting stars. What do you guys think? Give me some tips. Do you guys have tips for what you do when you mess up your stencil transfer? Besides getting a baby wipe and washing it off and starting over again and having a nervous breakdown on your job and throwing your stencils in the garbage and never using them again? I'm just joking. Seriously, do you guys got any tips on how to use your stencils, how to do damage control on the job? Glitter's my favorite. Not worrying is my other favorite. Going over it again with a darker color and starting over with a new sponge and taking a little deep breath and seeing the perfect result. It also works. Leave your comments below on, let me know if this was helpful, if there's something else that you're struggling with and you want to have some tips on. Let me know. Other people might have the answers for you in the comments as well. And other than that, we'll see you again in the next video. And thanks so much for watching. And can't wait to, just paint